Amazing. I'm back. I'm still here with Vercel in San Francisco, and what a beautiful day. What a beautiful office. I mean, I just love being here. And who do I run into the hallway other than Guillermo himself? And so it's amazing meeting you finally. Lovely to be here. Yeah, I've heard so much about Vercel. I've heard so much about your story. I mean, I've known you back when you were called Site. But admittedly, I don't really know how to pronounce your last name. So how do I pronounce your name wrong?
Guillermo Rauch. We're Rauch.
Guillermo Rauch. It sounds a bit German, though.
Yeah, half of my family, well, unfortunately, about half of my family on my dad's side immigrated from Germany to Argentina, and the other half from Italy.
The other half from Italy. Wow, okay, crazy.
A mix.
And Site as well is a German word for time.
Yeah, I get a lot of inspiration over the years of how to bring the concept of real time to everything in software development, whether it's to React, to Next.js and HMR, or I developed a framework called Socket.io, which is about real-time, instantaneous feedback, instantaneous communication on the web. That's been my jam for a long time.
And so first of all, amazing, love that. But you Socket.io, big fan of Socket.io. The fact that we could do real-time and provide that across on web factories, because obviously web tooling is just each browser has different capabilities. Being able to provide that underlying system to provide real time, totally huge.
Some of the engine behind Socket.io is still extremely evolving. It actually is the real-time engine behind apps like Notion and others today. And yeah, what it brought to the world is this ability to, solve for problems when you have a clear vision in the future, like, WebSocket is in the solve our problems for real-time communication, but you want to make that broadly accessible, and you want to bring it to production, you want to bring it to reality, and that means solving for difficult problems with frameworks and devices and things like that. And that's been a theme throughout my entire career, which is something that was a crucial experience when I built Next.js over Vercel.
Awesome. I love that. And that's why in contemplate in the beginning, I guess, to put about time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess rolling back a little bit to, I guess, a different tiding for that. But we were talking before, and you mentioned you're from Argentina.
Yeah.
But that's actually around Buenos Aires. I know Buenos Aires.
I was curious of Buenos Aires. It was like this little town called Lanús, which was like a kind of like a factory little town that was developing in the outside Buenos Aires. And later on in my teenage years, I moved to the city of Buenos Aires, but my life really starts in those outskirts.
I love Buenos Aires. I love Argentina. I had the pleasure of traveling through Argentina. It was my personal life goal to go to all continents before I turned 30.
Nice.
And so in part because as a continent. So I had to give out. I had to who would have guessed? And so it was my journey to go down there and steal those linens efficient. And a big of the linens down there. I started to.
And yeah, but see photos. I haven't been, but I've seen photos of the penguins in the beautiful just like the eyes. It don't look so remote. It looks like a different world.
It's a different planet down there. I would highly recommend it. But to get there, you need to go to Ushuaia, Argentina, and take a ship down the Drake past some of the most roughest seas in the whole world.
Yeah.
We got stuck in the storm. It's a whole other story.
A friend of mine from the node.js community and the open source community went in there, and he was already kind of averse to choppy seas. He didn't know what he was getting into.
He's certainly nervous.
But then when he overcame it, he has all these photos that I don't think he could take anywhere else on Earth.
Well, being, he said he's a Node.js because they work on Node core, but they work
because he's sort of been always in the open source world and used frameworks like Socket.io, and then he later on became more specialized in infrastructure and backend.
Okay, because if you worked on Node core, we'd expect him to be a bit more familiar with the C. Anyway, it was stop with my terrible jokes now. So anyway, I got to discover Argentina, a beautiful country. I love Argentina. I have to ask, are you a Boca fan or a Red fan?
Boca, and Lanús, so the town where I grew up in, has a pretty awesome soccer team. So, but when I moved, and my family as a whole have always been kind of like a Boca heritage. So, both Boca and Lanús.
So, the last time I was there, it was a Super Classico Boca River final, and the city was crazy. I mean, it was crazy. I went to a Boca match before that. Since didn't happen, I went to a Boca match before that. That sport game was amazing. I've never been to a sports game like that. And so for me growing up in Canada, I mean, hockey was our thing. I love Formula One. Very high adrenaline sports. But being in the crowd of that Boca match was high adrenaline. Have you gone to those? I'm curious what your thoughts. Yeah.
I have been to maybe one step down from that, which is like, you know, like really decisive matches between Letos and some other team. And I've also, Boca, I'd never been to the actual Super Classico, which is, as you know, like, it also depends on like, is it an average Super Classico or is it like a final of, you know, some major turn? Boca versus, there's a lot of levels to it. But I think it's interesting, like, it makes you realize, I think, once I left Argentina, I kind of introspected and realized something that seems obvious to say, but how big the culture of Argentina is shaped by soccer and by this, you know, intensity, and it even shapes language. Like a lot of things people say are like rooted in soccer. Funny enough, I'm now in the same introspection here with like baseball. Like I find myself saying a lot of things that are like baseball, like slang, and I actually know the rules that well. So
at least you have the home run with Vercel, right? And so there you go. But that's super interesting. I really want to learn more about that. Like I did cognition, semantic analysis, and a lot of that. So I mean, how language shapes culture, especially in German, actually. And in German was one of the languages that I studied as well with English, and how cognition in German. An example I give is in English we say 99. So we know 90, we know the scale of the number, and then the last word is 9. We kind of know locate. Let's spot the 90 of 9.
Lift up a little.
In both 90, it was double. No, going the significance.
Yeah.
No,
I got it.
And so in German, exactly, it's 99. It's 9 and 90. And so you know it's 9, but you don't know like 9 and what, like 9 and 30, 9 and 40, 9.
Yeah.
And so that actually triggers a ton of cognitive pathways in your brain, trying to kind of fill in the gap of what you're thinking, you know. And so whole language
say something that made she like reverse, you know. I mean, great. Yeah, brain nasal.
Yeah. Like drawing a crazy parallel into software. Like you remember the Intel chips and all those security flaws where there was like fun out that. Yeah, I'm trying to think about. If I do look ahead and trying to predict what I'm going to say, what the entity of X, and that was a security issue. And so as you have a weird cognitive analysis, I'm going to step back for a second. I want to hear from you. Like, in what way did language and football shape Argentinian culture, and how is that different from here? I'm really curious about that.
I think just the way that people constantly like reference and create metaphors with it, and I think it's highly dependent. It's also intensely emotional, and how it permeates to language, and it's funny, like memes as well. I was explaining to someone the other day when we lost the final with Germany. And I think one of our forwards, Higuain, had an opportunity he was like 1-on-1 with the German goalkeeper. And I think had he scored, I think it would have been like a smooth victory for Argentina. I think it ended up going to penalties. Hopefully I'm getting everything right. But what's important to the story is that the forward was confronted with the huge goalkeeper, like Germans would tell people. And this guy was no exception, as opposed to goalkeepers are. But yeah, so he left a huge gap in between his legs where the Argentinian forward could have kicked the ball under, or he could have gone over. And this is a tall guy, like amazing goalkeeper. So it was that like fork in the road, like last ditch decision they have to make, and like he went over, the guy blocked it. And what became a meme of Argentinian culture is you had to go underneath. And people now reference that when you have a choice in your life. And era por abajo, like things like that had like for a while, and even till this day, like people continue to reference and like kind of become an extension of culture and language of the world, are fascinating. And it's interesting to think how like a sport can have that much impact in society and conversation and knowledge in politics. Like really, a lot of what can make a politician win is his connections to that side of the world. Whether they're like political connections of people that back this sports teams and things like that. And, so Argentina is a very interesting country from that point of view.
I love Argentina. I want to go back so badly. In fact, one of these days I'll go back. But I'm curious about yourself. I mean, growing up in Argentina, I'm curious, like, what was English your first language? Was that something you had to like learn? Obviously, I mean, you're obviously known for Vercel, you're known for Next, you're known for all of these things, and programming is a very English-centric language. But you need a low English word to program effectively, in my opinion. Where did you start with that?
Yeah, so my parents were engineers, and my mom is a chemistry engineer, my dad is an industrial engineer. One thing that my mom would always point out is that she loved her short experience of working at a multinational American company due to the proficiency in how they would do business, the quality of the tools, the quality of the things that like they would export and they would resell in Argentina, the quality of the manuals. So she always had this deep respect and admiration. It's like, okay, the best way to do engineering is like the Americans. And I think from an early age, they kind of instilled in me, kind of the back of my mind, that like English is going to be a really important tool. And then the other thing that happened was my dad is this kind of guy that like gets bored or overthinks very easily and very quickly. So if you have a very curious, hyperactive mind, I think it's like a really great strength. But one thing he overcame and got over with very quickly was his own degree. He was an industrial engineer, and then it was like, you know what? Like the future is software. I'm like almost overnight flipped the switch. And started reading news and things and interviews and whatever, anything he could get his hands on about how software is going to define the future in the world. So he started buying things for a household, like bought a computer. He would go to we have this, I don't know if you saw this in Argentina, we have all this like magazine kind of little kiosks on the streets. Like it's just a bunch of magazines structured in like little like just like plates, like only sells magazines, sometimes books. And one of those had a magazine about Linux. So like, even in my notes, like my dad was like, oh my God, like there's a pedal in there. Let's go buy it, as you would. And like, that's what like, I kind of grew up being inspired to try to do things with computers. And quickly I realized that English was the only way that I was going to learn the cutting edge. So as soon as we got an internet connection, that's like when my world kind of opened up. Then I started getting interested in Linux, and my world opened up even more. And at that point, I think that materials for learn, I'm self-taught. So for like learning it and teaching myself programming in Linux, the ratio of English to Spanish was like, without exaggeration, probably like 95% English, 5%.
100% Spanish. I like, I mean, I like you what you're saying. Because I see layout.
Do YouTube, it is
with YouTube and with Google Translate as well. There must help. But I mean, like, if you think about JavaScript, I mean, we have the word if, we have the word function, we have the word return. I mean, if all the
we still have it a little easier with the Romance languages, but that I think also the debugging and error messages, like all that kind of stuff, is immediately sets you out the rabbit hole of English.
And then oftentimes, I mean, I wouldn't call debug messages anything close to English. It makes it cryptic in another language. But yeah, I mean, you need to understand English to be able to know even what's going on.
Yeah.
But you said something there about Linux. Linux is complicated. Linux is cryptic. Linux is, and I often think about it as 50% configuring it, 50% using it. You spend all this time configuring it. Like that's difficult.
Yeah.
You said you've got internet to then learn Linux. I mean, so with the EPS, you got Linux, you got internet on Windows?
Yeah. This is the funniest part of the story, I think. First of all, people using Linux in Argentina, very small numbers. Kids using Linux in Argentina, even smaller numbers. Kids using Linux in Argentina, I know is surprising. And it happened very quickly after we got an internet connection, because I think what really happened, like now looking back, is like I had saturated whatever online content was of interest to me at the time. So we got a Windows computer, got an internet put on it, and then we started with downloading software and running. That was fun for a while. Downloading games and running them, that was fun for a while.
Yeah.
And then just kind of cash explore in the internet, but there is not as vast as it is today. Especially for the things that I knew existed at the time, and the online newspapers that were in Spanish and whatnot. So in many ways, I think Linux made a lot of sense for me as well, because putting internet on it was extremely challenging for me at the time. Probably one of the things I'm proudest of that I problem solved myself and then could teach others to do at a very young age. But then conversely, that opened up this whole fascinating world of IRC and open source and I remember hacking like the PHP project, early on the Symphony project, the eventually the MooTools project.
Oh my God, I love MooTools.
Symphony project, and all of those things that kind of really fast followed once I realized, okay, open source is the way, open source operating systems are the way, things that prioritize developer tools and the hacking mindset and the curiosity mindset. And all of this is like concurrently, I'm learning English, but it was also always in the service of, enabling all this learning and all these things.
Yeah. That's wow. Okay. That's a lot. I mean, and all the different things that you just mentioned, I mean, is also a lot. I mean, learning, getting a Linux magazine, to get internet on Windows, to get Linux, to teach yourself programming, to get involved with efforts. I know a lot of hate. So then with Linux, everyone must
really love software, right? Because you have to be so patient for it. It's like a baby. Like, you have to really love your software babies, because the story of setting up internet on the Linux desktop at the time was horrible. And it required me.
But the baker, was this back in the days you had to install the internet? Like, did I really
install it is like a loaded word, because I had to like download a software package that luckily came in the CD-ROM. So like, coincidence of life, like my dad had bought this magazine that had a CD with random utilities that that like you could find useful in Linux. And whatever magazine editor did that thinking was seeing how it would be really useful for me. The other thing I'm remembering now, a challenge was even like having your CD device to work. Well, so it's not branded. At the time, I remember I kept like browsing through different Linux distributions. The one that really helped me at the time was Red Hat. And Red Hat got its start in consumer grade Linux. Like, now it's known for enterprise software, as many companies do. But at the time, it was like, okay, like, we will give you a GUI installer, because most installers at the time for Linux were text-based. So I remember it was very much a Windows-like experience, which Windows-like at the time meant they were famous out of their something service. Next, finish, wizards.
Right.
So Red Hat had taken that idea, applied to the installation process. Next, customize how you want your distribution to work, finish. And then kept pre-configure and boots up into an X environment. So like Windows and like the graphical user interface. And then at the time I don't remember if it was like KDE or GNOME with one of those. But the CD worked, which was quite a feat. I didn't have to recompile kernel and configure the CD drivers and whatever. So I inserted that CD. I got this software package. It was called RPPBOE. I had to memorize a lot. So I even remember like I had to memorize the commands like tar, ZFD, BF, whatever, like and XCDF. Yeah. And like reboot and like make install, and like it was an enterprise. So I had to have a lot of patience. But throughout this, I learned the value of community. So my internet service provider, Linux at the time, was also running, as internet service providers used to do. They would run a lot of services because they wanted to sell you the internet, and they had this catch-22 bro. They had a host of bootstrap services that would be useful for that internet for purchase. Great. And like nowadays, like they Comcast gives you the internet, and then you already have Netflix and Facebook. Yeah, at the time, they would give you the internet, and they would have to run their news website, a bunch of other things. And they also run the IRC Wation. Again, really, fantastic. Very interesting, but I think it also came from this DNA of like, okay, what's there that we could do on the internet?
It's a face shot. It's basically America Online. It's them like, so the America on site, or
you see about the city.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't think about it. And also thinking of that because they had a Linux channel. I remember the IRC clients have later like render all the channels that are available to join, and you could sort them by like the membership count.
Yep.
And then the latest is he put to the bottom, but there were like 10 enthusiasts there, and I just started spending a lot of time and that would even read the conversations that they were having.
Yes, I love this story. I mean, like for me personally, like I'm not sure about you, but I remember the first time I got like IRC set up. And I'm like just getting it set up. I'm like, oh my God, it's running now. Oh my goodness. And then like just sitting there and just absorbing it for the first little while. It was like so much is happening in this world that it just wasn't even a part of, you know what I mean? It's like for the first time, seeing it all happen was like just insane, you know? And then like finally getting the courage to like join on, like finally getting the courage to participate. And then like, you know, hearing back and like, so you're talking to someone else and it's just like, whoa, okay, it's cool. A whole new world. And like I'm curious about yourself and wondering if you felt any of that like kind of emotional kind of journey as well. So like just I mean like for myself I was a like young kid growing up in Newfoundland, Canada, like in the middle of nowhere, you know what I mean, with nothing going on. We used to play hockey, like, you know, play a little hockey event. So like when our 3 months of summer we had maybe go outside a little bit. But the time that a lot of it was spent over dial-up, you know, on our computer. You just want to tinker around, and that was kind of a lot of my childhood was that, and you know, just again the patience of being on the computer and just some of the patience of dial-up. Yeah.
The chat piece for me and like starting to like connect with people that have shared interests in many ways. Like, you know, I had amazing friends at school, but they were interested in the other side of things, and I was also interested in like software and whatnot, but I had this huge side of me that was interested in like developing software, shared knowledge online, actually obsessed with everything I'm learning, I'm going to share. Yeah. So if I learn how to set up Vercel on Linux, I wrote extensive tutorials. Linux had this how-to culture that I very loved. Like people would share documents on how to accomplish tasks, and like maybe it's always now. But that was a huge thing. Like the community coming together to like write out this papers, and I contributed my own in Spanish event.
And then Spanish.
It started with Spanish because I was developing this like local connections, and that was a gap that I was solving for as well. Because I was reading in English, translating in Spanish.
Gotcha.
Translating not just like word by word, and also translating through my experience. How can I teach this thing better?
Yeah,
because I overcame obstacles that weren't quite written out in the original tutorial.
Yeah. I mean, I love this for so many reasons. I love it. Like a big part of it is that like talking to Mark Erickson, Dan Abramov, like Natalia from the Vue team, talking to Guillermo now. It's amazing to me that all of them started through documentation and teaching us. As if you look at the trajectory of all of their careers, I mean, they're really at the top of their game, and I mean, lovely to talk to. That's really taken them so far. So oftentimes when we talk to aspiring developers looking at how to get there, start with documentation. You know what I mean? Start by teaching. Start by explaining. It's crazy to me personally talking to these types of people and hearing what the commonality amongst all of them. So yeah, so that's super good. You mentioned in Spanish. What was your English? That was good enough to read, but not good enough to write at that point.
Well, I started out developing very strong reading skills. Then I quickly realized that my wedge into the world was to start to spread knowledge and write out things. I had a blog that was really successful at the time on the front page of dig.com.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was then became it sent off a lot of their following to Reddit, and like both were like neck and neck for a while. So reading and writing English became my thing. Like I didn't even know how to like actually verbally speak it. In fact, when I first came to San Francisco, I had a really hard time even talking to a cab driver. And then people would be like, wow, you like you seem like you're a beginner speaking English, but then like you're written English and the way you like express yourself and communicate online is great. So, and that was because of this past of all I do is like read and write like voraciously to learn things or teach things, but I wasn't practicing my spoken English as much.
That's fascinating. That's so cool. And well, I mean, obviously now you're an expert, and that's super interesting. So yeah, you mentioned coming to San Francisco, coming to the U.S. You mentioned that you kind of had inspiration from that from a young age, but then now obviously you're here. I'm curious, what really is like essentially what brought you here. And why are you still here?
Yeah, looking back, I think it was kind of my destiny, but the concrete way that it happened was I was contributing to this open source project, MooTools. I was really excited by the premise of JavaScript first because it was the only language that on the web could be on the client side and do things with no latency, augment the experience.
I love MooTools. I love MooTools. I started MooTools, I think 2005, maybe 2004. I forget, something like that. But as I remember, I was interning at a medical software company, and the thing that blew my mind was drag and drop. Yeah, it was drag and drop. The fact that you could have like a list and a list, and just sort of roll it, and it would just beautiful with animations, and like ghosting effect, like drag and then drop. And like at that point on the web, like that didn't exist. That everyday drag and drop didn't exist. On desktop, it was barely even good. I mean, and the fact that it could do it smoothly with perfect animation, perfect ghosting, and that all of the event listeners and triggers, handlers just worked as well. It was insane. I was like, okay, now I can finally...
But there are browsers. What IE6?
Across browsers, IE6 support, like I could finally build like rich experiences on the web, completely smooth, without any sort of jittering animation.
Yeah.
I mean, like for me, the one thing I said was like, I don't really care if the framework makes me jump through a few loops. I'm not saying MooTools there, but like my attitude was like, if the framework makes me jump through a few loops, but it's still a beautiful user experience, sure, I'm optimizing for the user experience. MooTools gave that beautiful user experience, but it also gave me extensibility on top of JavaScript, sure, primitives through class.
That was the base of the worries of a lot of those tools was how do we augment JavaScript because JavaScript is not there yet. In fact, I remember one of the big catalysts for me leaving Argentina was I was like 16 or 17, and one of the MooTools contributors had joined this company, Cloudera. It's a startup that came to define the first generation of the big data world. And their CTO at the time, Jeff Haberbacher, looked at JavaScript and he was like, holy crap, it's missing all of the things that other programming languages already have.
Yeah.
They got to the same evolution that the TypeScript authors arrived to, and it's missing things.
Like in my opinion, essentially, I was not confident authoring large amounts of JavaScript. Right. I was just not confident. And I wanted to start to have a lot of problems.
It augmented the language, it created the concept of a class when a class didn't exist. And that was a big driver of adoption early on. So MooTools kind of started getting a lot of traction with promising startups, like larger companies, and one such company that decided to use it was this agency in San Diego that got hired by a startup in Switzerland.
Okay.
So that was like my first realization of like, oh wow, I can, even before I have the opportunity to go to college, I could already get a job. And this job is promising not just to pay well, but also cater to my interests, which I was already working for MooTools for free, basically, and also get to travel. They get, I'm going to go to, so that's why I could probably news my parents, like, oh, by the way, like next week I'm going to Lausanne, Switzerland for a kickoff of this project.
As a 16-year-old?
17-year-old at first. I needed the permit from my parents, like they both had a sign, like, oh, this guy can go overseas.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. Wow. It was okay.
Yeah.
And so it was your first job.
Basically, I mean, I had been working. It honestly had been. What is this? It was like 12.
Wow.
I was doing odd jobs online for what I was learning. Like, and my very first job was to fix something related to like CSS on a website. I remember, but this was like the first one where I felt this seriousness of like, holy crap, this company has investors, deadlines, product managers. They're going to launch in multiple countries. And there was a huge opportunity to use MooTools to make a huge difference in their product. So I was like, okay, forget about high school. I was like, in high school, I was like, okay, but nothing matters anymore. All in on this day.
Yep.
And the company from San Diego, they're like, sponsor all my flights and everything. And they did open a little HQ here in SF. Even that's how they made up in SF.
Amazing. And people like, you're still here. So, wait, yeah, the something must have was into bar.
Where we are now.
Oh, me too.
It was in the America there.
Oh, wow. Okay, very cool. So you started that company, MooTools. I mean, I freaking love MooTools. So thank you so much for creating MooTools. Whenever I talk to people, I talk to them about other tools, and they're like, dude, this guy's insane. So like, why? Finally, someone that understands what I'm talking about over here, okay? So very cool. Basically, what happened next? So like essentially, what's the gap between there and now?
Yeah. So a couple of quick things. MooTools kind of became like a predecessor in some DNA strand of the front infrastructure tooling world at Facebook, now Meta. So Facebook had picked out, like, okay, they identified, there's a lot of talent in that emerging group, but they had very interesting ideas, some of which are almost like controversial.
Right.
And Facebook was one of those products, like the newsfeed, chat, all those things that required lots of interactivity of the client.
Yep.
So they were like one of the early investors in like this world of Ajax and drag and drop, and like we were doing amazing stuff pushing the boundaries of browsers, like their upload for large files and photo, like they were challenging themselves, like, oh, people can drag and drop thousands of photos onto the Facebook site to share with friends. How do we handle that? They started like, they had a Flash-based upload system with a fallback to a JS system and like all of this kind of stuff. And my journey continued on. Like when node.js came out, I got really excited. I was a super early adopter. In fact, I was adopter of a competing project of Node. That was another runtime based on, I think it was a Spider Race Monkey.
Yep, Spider
project.
Yep. I remember this. I remember that. Like for me personally, I learned JavaScript when I was 11, 12. And I remember reading, I think it was HTML30.com, if you remember.
Yes.
That's the way I learned my JavaScript. I remember reading through JavaScript, and it said somewhere you can also execute this on the server.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Jake, like, oh my God, and execute on the server, like, where's the utility in that? Yeah, that sounds terrible. I could barely write JavaScript on a client, and like, it was a terrible debug. Yeah, why would I want to write this on the server? But kind of like you're saying, it was kind of all that tinkering, like, kind of like, oh my God, I could finally actually write the server-side app now. Like, then it was kind of a like mind-blowing experience. Yeah,
I had become very productive with PHP. So I loved and so it was like, I shared a lot of the opinions that I think Stein with like early Facebook, like they were based on PHP. They wanted to invest a lot in the client side. They were very productive, prolific, detail-oriented, etc. So it kind of made sense that like, I think like a lot of MooTools folks went that way. The thing that I was obsessed with that I think was kind of interesting is, to your point, I wanted to run JavaScript everywhere.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of recover the productivity benefits and simplicity benefits of PHP.
Right.
So Next.js was my attempt, fast forwarding, when I started a company here after the company in Switzerland. I sold that company to WordPress.com.
Okay.
The parent company, WordPress, the open source project.
Okay.
At the time, we were known in the community for a lot of successful Node.js projects and frameworks, and WordPress starting to bet a lot more on their new JavaScript tooling to power their new editor. It's called Dannenberg, and they were invested a lot more in the JS. So
like there's one thing I know about WordPress. I don't know very much about WordPress. So one thing I know about WordPress is that obviously WordPress is open source. It's free for software. WordPress.com makes all their money off of posting. Is it can relate WordPress?
You have to think of it almost like a Squarespace type of product that has its DNA in the WordPress, the open source project, but it's more like a site builder for like large numbers of people that would never want to know anything about, like, it's totally WordPress or whatever. So the interesting thing though is like that kind of made me realize when I was working there that there was a huge opportunity to enable developers to have that kind of ease of use. Like imagine that I could tell you that Okay, so like I could probably teach, most people that use computers regularly to create a website with Squarespace. But like to create an application or dynamic site with React or things like that is, my goodness, it's quite a leap, right?
Yeah.
So there were a couple of inspirations there. One was like, can I enable that, but for really dynamic application-like experiences, and can I enable that for the JavaScript world? So when I left, I knew that I wanted to do something to like continue to push this developer productivity, developer experience idea forward. I didn't know quite exactly what I was going to do, but I think one of the critical events in my life, and I even remember where it was in my apartment in San Francisco, I wanted to create a simple page, like this, not a huge ask, a simple landing page for my startup using the latest and greatest technologies known at the time. So I was drinking the React Kool-Aid really hard as in love and still in love with that technology. And I wanted to use Kubernetes to deploy it. Oh my God, like this is when I had that like the world.
Wait, don't tell me. Did you have to configure web app as well?
Yes.
Oh my God. That was a huge part of it. Wow.
Like I live here and
Kubernetes and web app.
You know the branches of a startup, right? Like you want that shit. Yeah, I want to ship. And okay, so like I think like my big breakthrough at the time was React was for components, and I was out here trying to develop and publish a page. So again, it goes back to that idea of like, imagine that you're making React so easy and accessible, then it almost feels like you're like using Squarespace, right?
Right.
So I had a very high bar. I wanted to like make it so easy and fast that to go from idea to global site. And then on the other hand, I realized, okay, like, let's say that you should make the enormous effort to package Webpack and Babel at the time. These are like the cutting edge technologies, and you create a router and a styling system, and you package it all together and you test it. And okay, now what? Like you're like that. You're like, okay, now what? Like, well, what's then? Like the key thing that was happening at the time was we're all trying to go cloud native, right? First,
Yep.
To me, I remember thinking at the time, like, it's in the cloud or it doesn't exist. Like, if you tell me, like, it's running correctly in your MacBook, cool. Like,
Fine. Like if there's no use to me, like, rather, how do you like this with the world?
I don't know. But yeah, I'm out here trying to share things with the world. Like, my bar was really, like, it has to be sufficient as a creating a Google Doc.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was my demand. And this is where, like, all that real time, like, background really comes in. Like, I remember, like, when I created the deployment platform to go together with Next.js, I first called the category, which frankly I think I was, inventing or co-inventing or whatever. It's called real-time global deployments. And to date, I think we're still working on that mission. Like real-time means to me that, you go from keystroke to shareable artifact in the cloud in milliseconds. And it has to be global. It has to be working everywhere. There can't be any downtime. There can't be any clouds to configure or Kubernetes single points of failure or whatever.
Yeah.
It's that idea of like from framework to cloud. They kind of co-develop together, and
it's really like I think the thing that you're fundamentally talking about is just removing all the bullshit, removing all the crap. It was like at the end of the day, what it's had.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like, you know what I mean? It's like I just want to build a page.
Yeah.
I just want this page to be deploying. I just want this thing out there. Like, they need that. Why am I doing all of these unnecessary things to kind of get that to happen? And then, just knowing what the software world was like back then, all those things were difficult. All those things are very up. Like Kubernetes, as you said, Webpack, as you said, like even React was a bit new at the time. Configuring all those Babel plugins was difficult at the time.
Yeah.
Server-side rendering was unseen.
Yeah.
Everything that they added, like, it's amazing because like preview environments was an unknown concept as well.
Yeah. Server-side rendering was huge. I was obsessed with it because I always thought, okay, one awesome thing about the web is that you can kind of reverse engineer it all. Like if you go to like google.com with enough patience and like just like web inspector dev tools, you can kind of figure out large parts of how they built it. I remember actually doing this a lot with Google Docs, and I would just go in and like, how is it built, etc. And one of the things I felt extremely strongly about at the time was like, the largest companies in the world are rendering in their server farms, in their clouds. They're taking the hit on behalf of the user. They're not delegating the computation to the user, to their mobile device, to their hardware, to whatever could be happening with their networks, their battery life, etc. So like, again, that's an organizing principle for me. Cloud more powerful than client. Let's start doing the work there. And to bring that to the real world was met with, controversy, and it required like more moving parts. Like you had to think about the server runtime, the client runtime, but it was all through this lens of like, let's make it really easy and really accessible. And then we went through this journey of making it serverless. And this is probably my favorite part of the story, because going back to that PHP inspiration, PHP tells you, on the one hand, fileless determined routing. That's kind of like the inspiration for Next.js process and routing. But the other really interesting thing is that this files act as sort of the invocation units, kind of like the CGI bit, like a request comes, goes through this file, processes, interprets, produces a response, dies. Okay, let's go to the next one. And that serverless nature of it also did exist with Kubernetes and things like this. And what I realized was, for the problem domain that we're going after, like the front end, the rendering problem, it makes total sense to go after that marketing as well. Total sense. I mean, like everything's a GET request. The only thing that's changing is the URL. And you can define a URL based on folder structure, and a request determines the computation. I think this is the really interesting part, is that it's like Heisenberg's assertion was like the observation of the route is like changing the state of the system, producing a response. Like things don't live out of their own accord. They live as a function, nobody intended, of the inputs that are coming off the net from the outside world. And then with serverless at edge, okay, like that should not just happen in Virginia and US East 1. That should happen every data center in the world according to the local demands of compute, for even localizing the page entry point. This is the other thing that's really interesting, which process and routing helps with, is like, I want to compute /A/B/C. Right now, I'm in South Africa. We just launched an edge region. So I'm in South Africa. I'm going to go to /A/B/C. Okay, that data center only has to hot load that code to respond to you just in time. So a lot of the things that we're optimizing for on the client side with code splitting, we put in tremendous amount of work thinking like Webpack routed checkpoint based code splitting. And it kind of like then it kind of paid off because we could apply to edge and serverless compute. So great, this imperfect coincidence of technologies, and obviously a lot of folks now take this for granted because we just offer this as seamless.
Which like 50 days, like they kind of the bullshit. I mean, where the current all you need to do is put a file, the whole, and that's it. And everything else for free, and like in a way, right? And so that's remarkable. I mean, like just knowing where we've come from and knowing where we are today. I mean, it's just huge. It's a relentless pursuit of just making it easy. Just getting rid of all the things they don't want you to ask for a user. I think that's the other part of we help with, because when server rendering, the reaction from a lot of devs at the time was, it's more costly and more complicated for me. Now, I'll give you one great example of how it's more complicated. Stack traces in JavaScript have always been known as source bounds. They've always been known to like be challenging, right? Like code goes through so many different pipelines of transformation. Some of it comes with their plant scripts or whatever. And you're already dealing with a lot with just making sense of the code paths and exceptions and errors or whatever you have on the client side. Why would you make your life worse to also put code in the edge? Maybe also could put code in the region next to your database or multiple databases. Why would you do that? Well, you would do that because it has a user method. Right. And we can still make it easy, but we have to have that prerequisite to want to make
the end user experience better. And
Yeah.
I think we're lucky that we had both those constraints in mind when we set out the design. Because I think it would have been actually a lot easier for me to say, like, it's just a single page application.
Yeah.
But it's one monolithic bundle of the client.
Yeah.
Like, look at the axis is just, if something goes wrong, just open DevTools.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's just inherent gravity towards that monolith computation. The problem is that it turns out, like, if you're doing anything where you want to offload the burden from the user, such as, you want to give them content fast because you're in media. You want to give them a product photo or description fast because you're in e-commerce. You want to give them information about their friends or what's happening with them because you're building a social network. Like, it all pulls in the opposite direction. It turns out that, we should make life as simplified and easy as possible for the user who's a customer.
Which, I mean, makes tons of sense. And I mean, but the relentless pursuit of that again, I mean, it shows today. Because I mean, everywhere where you are today, I mean, like Next today, Vercel today, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, what 400 people I think I heard?
Yes.
And I mean, some of those people are some of the like literally the people that are pushing this whole technology forward. I mean, there's Tobias Coppers from Webpack, Subra, by software by his username. I think Sebastian Parkerboga.
They take the lead of React, of Svelte, Webpack is building the next.
Chip filter like to do Rich Harris, right? Yep. I mean, like it's remarkable where you've come today. I mean, you have all of these people here along with yourself.
Yeah, to trigger to some of the most exciting open source projects. And one thing I particularly like is we've brought in DNA from lots of different projects. So we don't just say, like Vercel is only for React, or this is the way. So Vercel is multi-framework. We've hired folks that work in lots of different technologies. For example, for our next generation compiler infrastructure, we hired one of the core managers of Vercel, Maya.
Yep.
And now she's also spearheading the future of compilers with Rust. We expanded our native languages. We are always chasing, like, what's the next big opportunity? And that means being really open-minded about what are the technologies that can make a difference.
Makes a ton of sense. And so I'm curious about you. I'm curious about how did you go from where you started with this, from just wanting to make life easy, was just wanting to build a page, to really where you are at. Imagine a 400-person company. I mean, like I'm curious about that journey, because I mean, a lot of people out there, they have lovely technical ideas, but it's a whole other thing turned into a business, turned into a company.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, can you tell me more about how you made that transition, like back in the early days, and then I guess I'd like to hear more about what your day-to-day is like today.
Yeah, in many ways, the pursuit is the same. We want to make the world better at building this really incredible pages and applications. The scale has changed. We're at like 30 million requests a week. We have millions of deployments per week. We have dozens of supported frameworks. Next.js gets downloaded over 3 million times a week.
Wow.
We have 70,000 registrants per Next.js conference in October. So the scale and everything has changed. The scale of customers have changed, right? Like, our developer is our best friend, is a person that we designed for, but nowadays we're empowering the developer that's building incredibly ambitious things at the largest companies in the world. Banks, fintech, healthcare, like I think it's been beyond our wildest dreams. There's a big impact that we've had in the world, and we're very proud as well that we've done it in such an authentic way.
Yeah, I'm curious because you mentioned something earlier, which was Red Hat went enterprise, but back when you were playing around with a bit more super words, like it was a bit more personal toward.
Yeah.
Next is both. Is not like next like someone like a teenager can go or shut up, install Hex, have a great time with Next, or as you said, a bank or an enterprise. Yeah, so I thought with Next. Like, that's a difficult balance to strike. The biggest strike that balance. Yeah, the biggest difference is that
We never wanted to build Next.js in a way where it would sacrifice your ability to build ginormous things with it. We knew that we weren't going to play where Wix is playing. We wanted that as an inspiration. Like, okay, it has to be that easy, but it's for a developer that is building really ambitious and large things. Now, you still have to make it so easy that when that developer is trying it out, they're learning, they're building their side project, building their own personal website, it has to also be a great experience. So the interesting thing that we overcame is that you could build a framework that was really easy for someone to learn it and really productive and flexible for someone that's going to run, in the future of this, right? Nike, Adidas, Puma, Porsche, all of which are Next.js and Vercel customers.
So then is it sensible defaults with the ability to extend where needed? Is that kind of the, like the very high level?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I read this thing recently, which I loved, which was, settings are not, there is this meme in design that settings are bad. Too many options is bad. I think that the twist is that it's not that settings are bad. I think we all collectively have the bad experience that I have to configure many things to get something started, and that is a strictly bad design. However, not having extensibility can also be a really bad design. Maybe not for the everyday consumer tool. And so you point out, like if, this is a habitat of options, great. I just want to drink. But if I want to build something for a very significant scale, we found time and time again that configurability dynamism, this is why dynamic workload is such a big lighthouse for us. That's what, the large levels of business things need. And if you don't have those extra settings and extra flexibility, dynamism, your tool is just not going to make it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I guess just like rewinding a little bit, it's like the Linux. Right. Yeah, that is very complicated to get started on. Like the fact that you had to like get Windows to install the internet to get it easy to learn English to that was complicated, difficult, and not easy to get started. Was not a sensible default. Yeah, it was very complicated.
However, Mac OS, which I migrated to from, I think at Denver, I used Debian, which is again painful to install, painful to set up online drivers, whatever. But again, all that developer tooling, got that ability to flexibility, open source configurability. Yeah, Mac OS actually did that awesome defaults plus power thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I told it everything I wanted to work just works. Yeah, everything looks beautiful, especially the fonts, text and typefaces. But then here's all my developer tools. I could run virtually any software and extend it. So that's kind of what inspires something like a Next.js and Vercel. The default path is just so fast and optimized, but then we can extend and configure and so on.
100%. Like if Linux is spending half your time configuring, half your time using, like Mac, it's sensible default, just get using it and configure it when necessary. So yeah, makes a ton of sense. I love that. But yeah, I'm curious about what it's like for you. I mean, your CEO is your, I guess, official title.
Yes.
And so, how do you think about business? How do you conduct Vercel? Like how do you operate? I mean, operating a 400-person company, it's tricky. Are there certain ways that you think about? There's certain techniques that you use.
You mentioned operating a 400-person company isn't easy. I think, just like everything else, there is step functions in your ability to scale a system, right? Like Vercel didn't used to scale as well as it's scaling now as a edge network, as a system that renders and delivers pages at scale. So I'm constantly trying to create frameworks for the company. It's like the meta at the J area problem. How can you create frameworks that allow the company to scale? One such framework is investing heavily in our culture and our values, because that repeatable engine where I can infuse my own sensibilities and opinions and ideas in a repeatable manner. So that gives agency to the company to do what they do best in each role, to be more decentralized. So
right.
It's like the framework design is somewhat centralized. Actually, very similar to Vercel, right? Next.js is an open source project where, we issue releases, we accept the patches, we accept ideas, we merge them, it's open to the entire world. But then there's, this is Next.js 13, and we unleash it to the world, and then it's this biological being, this decentralized system that creates applications all in the world. And then as they get developed, that brings in the next set of inputs and ideas for us to apply to the next release. And you can think of my role as the same thing, I'm constantly grabbing inputs from all over the world. In many ways, the company itself is an open platform. Why? Because at some point we're going to be a public company. Right now, we have lots of investors, the stakeholders, partners, large customers that have a huge say in our future roadmap.
Yeah.
The community, developers, folks that are learning, folks that are advanced, employees and colleagues. So all of that goes into each like quote unquote version of the company that gets released by the leadership team. So it's this combination of centralization and decentralization.
I love that. It's really thinking as an engineer. It is before to centralized, we're like decentralized.
Yes.
It's oftentimes when you think about like systems programming, like what do I centralize, what do I decentralize? How do you scale? And how do you scale? And how do you scale 100%? And I think what he said, centralizing values and defining values and spreading values such as that can be picked up in a more decentralized manner really enables scale. So that is incredibly interesting. I'm curious on that note. What particular values are you instilling? Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I was just thinking values are so effective because they're like viruses, and then I was like, oh, I shouldn't say that because that sounds awful. So I was thinking, what's a positive word for virus? Oh, it's meme. So what we did when we set up our values was to actually do a job of introspection. Like, what are the successful memes that are valuable and create people are happy about, they feel inspired by. So even values is not a thing where you're just saying, boom, these are the values, but also like the job of introspecting, seeing what works well and what people come to Vercel for. I actually sometimes go out and like interview our own colleagues and be like, okay, like why do you work at Vercel? What do you love about Vercel? One of the things that came out is we had this internal monitor called Dig Deep. And I don't know how it came up. Like those two, I actually think I know how it came up. I think it was from an interview to Arnold Schwarzenegger, where like he would say like one of the things that made me successful was, I think he said like leave no stone unturned and dig deep. And I like that those two words a lot. I was like, I remember thinking, how can I explain succinctly that value of you get an issue on GitHub, you get an email from a customer, and you're not satisfied with replying, I can't remember, bro. Sorry, like ghost, or maybe like the regression is incomplete, the error is not that accurate. Like, how can we synthesize that idea of like going above and beyond and not being satisfied with the same happens a lot with infrastructure, by the way. So it's like you notice that there was an incident of some kind and it kind of went away of its own, or you did something and it fixed it, but you're not fully content with why the root cause.
It's kind of like a Heisenberg bug is what we call it, right?
Yeah,
it's like observing a debug kind of exactly when.
Exactly. Yeah. And the difference there, like digging deep and it can be like you now avoiding your next outage or the next reoccurring memory leak, or you gain another non-init availability. And like, so I started finding this pattern. And there's so many things where you can apply this value that you can't even imagine yet.
Yeah. And that's just so important to
take that meme and be like, okay, like I'm going to make that, I'm going to own up to it. So we did it with a bunch of things and we're very happy about it. It's who we are.
I love that because it's simple. It's two words, dig deep. Oftentimes when I ask people in your position about what their values are, they give me like a 10-page essay. I'm like, oh yeah, how's anyone gonna like memorize?
It really sounds authentic, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this like reusable, like I think that's in art is that like it has to be who you are. It has to be a reflection of the cells. It can't be imported.
Yeah. And I think as well, just again, knowing the types of people that work at Vercel, I mean, all of them dig deep.
Yeah.
They all have that kind of like trait in common. They all dig deep. And every time I talk to them, it's just so lovely because like I get to learn so much more about that depth of engineering and kind of that care and passion that goes into it, which I mean, is just amazing. But yeah, I guess if I can ask you just one last thing, and this is a bit personal, is about Argentina. and about your thoughts about that. I mean, you've been here in San Francisco now, I think for a while. And for me, knowing a little bit about Argentina, I mean, again, beautiful country, I love it so much there. But the state of Argentina is a little bit different than the U.S. right now. I'm curious about what your thoughts are about Argentina from when you grew up and until now.
Yeah, I think one of the most fascinating things about America that I love the most is there's a culture that welcomes and accepts diversity, different points of view, immigration. I think a lot of what makes America my favorite place to be in is values and the openness of the culture, and a culture that rewards and loves innovation and entrepreneurship. So my wish for Argentina would be to, it's like the mimetic expansion of these ideas, right? Like Argentina has the opportunity to become a lot more like that over time. I think through the developers, engineers, creators, designers, marketers, the folks that are building things, I think they're going to have an incredible opportunity with the cloud. So as you know, you've been there, like Argentina has issues with the currency, inflation, hyperinflations of all kinds of things like that. But as the world becomes more cloud native, digital first, edge first, I think a lot of the brilliant things about Argentina and its culture, like innovation, outside the box thinking, like Argentina's extremely creative. A lot of the best reverse engineering security people in the world that I know are from Argentina, crypto people are from Argentina, but we have to have that ability to overcome, what has really been a lot of decades, maybe centuries of, economic crisis and things that have held the country back.
Yeah.
I think now that we're living in this world where that mimetic inspiration can happen kind of instantaneously and hopefully get contributed to inspiring people there as well. But, it's all about shipping, like building stuff and putting it online and sharing with others. That was very much what I did. Like we're talking about MooTools. I was like, here's my patch, here's my PR, here's my contribution, here's my example.
Yeah.
And just continue to put stuff out there, put it into the work. You don't have to put it into just Argentina. That's the beauty of, why we at Vercel are so in love with this idea of deploy, get a hyperlink. You can share a hyperlink from where I grew up, Lanús, Argentina, put it into the world. I was thinking about this thought experiment, right? Like you built a cool thing and within seconds, it can be in the hands of the CEOs, whenever, like of the most important companies in the world.
Yeah.
It's just, it was so fast. And then we are, holy crap, that's cool. And then you're like, hey, who built it? Oh, someone in Argentina, someone in South Africa, someone in Nigeria. Yeah, let's talk to that. Let's build something with them. Like, that connection. This is why our mission at Vercel is to enable developers to create at the moment of inspiration. Yeah, when the idea comes, you put it out in their world, helping with remove all possible friction.
I love that. That is amazing. And that, at the end of the day, is really the mission that, Vercel and Guillermo are on. And that was just an amazing story to hear. Guillermo, bit of a happy about pleasure. Lovely to meet you and lovely to talk to you about everything that you're doing. I can't wait to see how this guy impacts the world. Awesome. Well, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.